welcome back to Waiting in Laodicea. I'm your host, A.T. Martinez. Today's topic is how to help yourself not get deceived. I'm not guaranteeing that if you follow everything I'm saying, that the world won't deceive you, but it'll make it a little bit more harder. See, I sit back and I look at the world today, and I see a lot of people that have been deceived by the words of other people. There are people out there that believe they can alter the Bible if it makes people feel good. That's flat out wrong. There's a difference between not rubbing things in. There's a difference between being tolerant and changing your beliefs for others. But let's not dwell too deeply on that one. One of the things that really amazed me was the number of people that are supposed to have voted for President Biden. Supposedly, President Biden received 80 million people voting for him. President Trump received 75 million people voting for him. Now, during Trump's presidency, a lot of people questioned whether evangelicals or Christians in general were being true to their beliefs by voting for Trump. Yet no one raised the same question about voting for Biden. There's a bias in that question already. How can any side vote for either one? How can a Christian say, vote for President Trump, who was a known womanizer? How can any Christian vote for Biden, who was constantly groping people? Well, as a Christian, my personal belief is these people are flawed. If you're going to pick one, you pick one whose policies are more supportive of your beliefs versus the one who is basically out to change your beliefs. But a lot of Christians don't look at it that way. I know a lot of people, the big defining issue for them is abortion. Are you pro-abortion or anti-abortion? If you're pro-abortion, then it doesn't matter what your party says, what else it does, as long as it keeps abortions legal. The problem with that is that it's such a short-sighted view. That it's a guarantee to end your religion. So how do you know what side is being supportive? Or even better, how do you know if somebody is actually of God or not of God? Well, the Bible tells us how to look at it and how to judge the actions of others. Not the people, but their actions. Let's go ahead and take a look at 1 John chapter 4.
1 John 4. King James Version. Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of God, because many false prophets are gone out into the world. Hereby know ye the Spirit of God, every spirit that confesseth that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God. And every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is not of God, and this is that spirit of AntiChrist, whereof ye have heard that it should come, and even now already is it in the world. Ye are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because greater is he that is in you, than he that is in the world. They are of the world, therefore speak they of the world, and the world heareth them. We are of God, he that knoweth God heareth us, he that is not of God heareth not us. Hereby know we the spirit of truth, and the spirit of error. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and every one that loveth is born of God, and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. In this was manifested the love of God toward us, because that God sent his only begotten Son into the world, that we might live through him. Herein is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us, and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins. Beloved, if God so loved us, we ought also to love one another. No man hath seen God at any time. If we love one another, God dwelleth in us, and his love is perfected in us. Hereby know we that we dwell in him, and he in us, because he hath given us of his Spirit. And we have seen and do testify that the Father sent the Son to be the Saviour of the world. Whosoever shall confess that Jesus is the Son of God, God dwelleth in him, and he in God. And we have known and believed the love that God hath to us. God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. Herein is our love made perfect, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment, because as he is, so are we in this world. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. We love him, because he first loved us. If a man say, I love God, and hateth his brother, he is a liar, for he that loveth not his brother whom he hath seen, how can he love God whom he hath not seen? And this commandment have we from him, that he who loveth God love his brother also.
If you look, we're going to start off here in the very beginning. It says, Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of God, because there are many false prophets are gone out into the world. So basically, since the time of Christ, false prophets have gone out and tried to lead the people astray. So how do you tell if somebody's a false prophet or not? Let's go on. Hereby we know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that confesseth not that Christ is come in the flesh is not of God, and that is the spirit of the Antichrist. So anybody who does not profess that Christ came in the flesh and died and rose is not of God. Okay, so that really doesn't help a whole lot when it comes to choosing political parties, because neither of them come out and say anything like that, because that would be mixing religion and politics. Let's go on. There's something else in here that shows you how to tell if somebody is of God. If we continue down, next we hear, how do we know? Because of love. People that love don't hate. People that love don't have fear indwelling. Now, let's stop right there and take a look at the two parties. Which side pushes love? Which side promotes love? Honestly, neither of them really promote love. Which side promotes fear? Well, both do. The Republicans talk about fearing other countries. The Democrats talk about fearing Republicans, and nowadays fearing white people, and white males especially. Okay, so which side pushes hate? Well, in all honesty, you gotta again say both of them. But one party really is on the hate bandwagon, and that would be the Democratic Party. If you look at the Democratic Party since, definitely through all 4 years of President Trump, it was a non-stop hate fest. Now, they'll sit there as their defense say, well, look at the way you guys acted with Obama. Well, President Obama got nowhere the grief that Trump did. Nobody was lying in courts to try to get him removed from office. Nobody called everybody that supported him deplorables, criminals. I mean, the list goes on. The number of insults They were leveled by the Democratic Party and its members towards those that supported Trump. I mean, the final word is that every single one that voted for Trump is a white supremacist, which really is ironic since quite a few people that voted for Donald Trump were minorities. So, one side definitely has a stronger view of hate. Now, why is this tolerated? Why is it okay for somebody to say, if you disagree with me, you're a white supremacist or you're a racist? And yet somebody else who disagrees with, you can't say the same thing back. Well, that's called identity politics and race politics. And that is the purview or one of the main MOs of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has long since used the idea of divide us up into little groups and ply the different groups against each other. We see this in their relationship toward race, the gender identity issues, LGBTX issues. All of these issues people are divided into a camp. You're either LGBT or you're not. And if you're not, you obviously must hate them. I mean, there's actually, believe it or not, a group that basically said, look, you do your thing, we do our thing. Our thing is we will only date people that are biologically the opposite sex of us. That has been defined as a hate group. Can you believe that? The idea that you don't want to date somebody who was not biologically born of the opposite sex makes you a hater. Makes you transphobic, they called it. No, it means that I don't want to play around with somebody who isn't the right sex. It's interesting how the Democratic Party continually states that they want to go with science, but yet they want to deny science when it pleases them. The Democratic Party also is the party that has a war on religion. Not all religion, because the Democratic Party rarely ever says anything against the Muslim religion. Probably because they're afraid of reprisals. But attack a Christian fundamentalist, go right ahead. It's safe. Christians aren't going to go out and blow them up. The Equality Act is a good example of the Democrats' view towards Christianity. They specifically exempted this bill from religious protections against religion, which means that if you have a religious organization, you cannot claim religious exemption from having to follow the rules of this law. That's specifically was done to target members of the Christian church. And if you look in society and you look over the last 12 years or so, you'll see that a lot of things that have gone through the Democratic side specifically are designed to target or to bypass Christian religion. Regardless which side of the abortion issue you're on, the idea has been accepted in this country for a while that no federal program should ever pay for abortions, because the idea behind that is you can't make people pay for something they consider murder. And it was accepted. Yet Obamacare, when it passed, exempted itself from that. It allowed the federal government to pay for abortions. Now we have the federal government paying for sex change operations and abortions. You know, way back in the very early part of my life, I can remember when people were arguing for gay rights. that their opponents started saying, but this will be a slippery slope. Well, hindsight is 20/20, and guess what? That has been one slippery slope. We went from a nuclear family to no family to no genders to total confusion out there. Now, we got groups that are actually trying to promote making it legal to engage in pedophilia. That's mind-boggling to me. And the idea that they're using the federal government to push this, well, this has been part of the progressive mantra since the late 1800s. The progressives realized that changing things at a state level was very expensive and very hard. The more states there were, the harder it became. It's harder to change 50 state legislatures than just change one. And the situation we have in Washington right now, where the House is ran by the Democrats and the Senate is tied, even at that tie, it's basically an open fest for the Democrats. All they have to do is get rid of the filibuster, and they can pass every single thing they want, other than a bill that requires money. Okay, so let me step back, and let's take a look at some of what the Democrats claim they're fighting for. Gay rights. In a general statement, what is a gay right? Honestly, nothing. There's human rights, the right to be treated equally under the law. There should be no difference in the way the law treats a man or a woman or anybody who identifies any which way under that. Whether you're straight or gay, everybody should be treated the same, regardless of the color of your skin or anything else. The only difference that I can see that should be allowed is a citizen versus a non-citizen. A non-citizen has extra rights because they can appeal to their embassy and possibly get extradited out of the country. What rights are they fighting for? Well, yes, in some cases they're fighting for the right to be equal, to be treated equal. But that treatment should only be under the law. Now, there are parts of the Equality Act that I really can't say anything against. That a landlord can't say, I'm not going to rent to you because you dress like a woman but you're a man. Look, I don't care how you dress. I don't care what you do in the privacy of your own room. That's between you, whoever you're with, as long as they're over 18, and God. And the law should reflect that. You should not be kept from getting a job. You should not be kept from getting medical care. None of these things like this should be blocked from you. But by keeping you from medical care, I don't mean having somebody else provide it. I mean, you should have access. And generally, no matter how you dress or what gender you claim, a doctor will take care of you. Now, where's the exception? Well, some doctors don't want to perform sex change operations. They feel that is wrong. Just like some doctors feel that abortion is wrong. The idea that you're going to force somebody to cut you and perform an operation that is against their beliefs, well, number one, that's wrong. You have no right to force someone to do something. So, the equality part, if that's where it stops, that would be great. But then they turned around and they said that these people get to claim and be treated as if they are whatever they claim to be. It's ironic that whenever in a discussion about this, Somebody said, can I claim to be a different age than I am? And the response to this was, no, that's biological. And they didn't see the irony in what their claims were. Now, this is the same party that has the party that promotes this is also the same party that has people picking and choosing their ethnicity. We have a fake Indian. We have many people that are not black that claim to be black. And it makes you wonder, they talk about how disadvantaged these groups are, but yet, why would you claim to be them? If white privilege was such a thing, why would you claim to be anything but white? And white male? The logic fails. They want special treatment, and that's what it boils down to. The point of all of this is, if you cannot see that feeding, the one example that I've heard is the Democrats are out to feed the poor. And yes, the Bible at least 13 times talks about the requirement to feed the poor. But the requirement isn't put on the government, it's put on you. So by having the government step in and do it for you, you've basically absolved yourself from the responsibility that is given directly to you by God. If that's your defense of the Democratic Party, is that they care more about poor people, then you're missing the point. It wasn't find somebody else, some schlub to do the job for you. God didn't say, here, feed the poor unless you can find some other sucker to pay for it. No, he said for you to feed the poor. You to give. It's that act of charity he wants from you. That showing that you personally care about humanity. And claiming you care about humanity and care about the poor whenever you're forcing other people to pay for it, that's not exactly showing me much, let alone what it shows God. So let's see. If these are difficult for you, can you imagine what it's going to be like when the person comes and says that, performs miracles and says that he is Christ, that he is the second coming, here to save the world? You got to get beyond. You got to stop thinking of what's in it for me. You got to start thinking about what is right and what is wrong. And use the, see, do they profess? Now, I will give you that based on actions alone and statements that they have said, I would not count either Trump or Biden as an example of Christianity. Not in my book. So if one side is definitely not, and neither is the other, then you need to go with the policies that they're pushing. And if the only policy that he's pushing that you care about is abortion, well, whenever you no longer have the right to practice your religion, because the Equality Act is going to be one of the first blows against Christianity, then you get what you pay for. You chose him. First step is underway. We as Christians need to be more discerning in what we push. We need to pick more carefully. There is no requirement that we had to vote for either of the two, neither Trump nor Biden. But yet, supposedly, more people have voted for these two presidents alone than in most of the elections in the past. Actually, very, almost surprisingly more. Hillary versus Trump, it was 50-51. So almost 100 million people voted that time, which is sad considering that's only a third of the nation. This last election, 150 million people voted. 70,000, 155. That's still almost half. Well, maybe a little more than half. Let's see. There's approximately 300 million people in the United States. If 150, 155, barely above half. Where's the rest of them? There's a lot of people that could have voted, but didn't. Why? Because the choices weren't that good. We haven't had a good choice in a while, I admit that. But you don't have to choose the lesser of two evils. It's time to start looking at some of the other parties, or accept that you will find your religion under attack. I am fully prepared to see that the government will start telling churches, either you perform gay marriages or you're going to lose your tax-exempt status. Now, I will stop right here and tell you one thing. The deal to get tax-exempt status was the biggest mistake the churches ever did. That they were offered a deal from Mammon. Will you choose God or will you choose money? And too many of all the churches chose the money. Because they are tax exempt, they're not allowed to state a preference in politics. No church, no preacher is allowed to go to the pulpit and endorse a president. Not if he wants to enjoy his tax exempt status. And I know most churches are afraid to lose that as tax-exempt status because then they'd have to pay property tax. But property tax isn't a federal tax. They could have maintained their tax-exempt status as long as it was done at the state and local level and still be able to actually take a side in the issues. We abdicated our rights as Christians to come together to voice an opinion. Unions do it. All these other organizations are allowed to come together and voice an opinion. Publicly endorse a candidate. Publicly condemn a candidate. We sold. So you will see that's going to change. They're going to start taking it away. And when they do, you're going to start seeing a lot of churches cave because they're afraid to lose the money. Now, maybe someday in the future I'll discuss my opinion on churches having huge amounts of money. When I think that too many churches are worried about building the biggest cathedral they can. That's not what we were told to do. But if you're losing that money, that means they're worshiping another god. And as I explained in a previous episode, you need to find out who your God is. Each and every one of us that is sitting here trying to figure out what is right and wrong, when we look at our candidates and our politicians and our politics, we need to remember who is our God. Now, does this mean that we should be going out there and attacking those that we disagree with? No. We don't need to resort to their tactics. We need to stay above that and go purely supporting our beliefs. Vote according to your beliefs. Now, if you sat back and said, well, Trump was Hitler. Number one, turn off the mainstream media. Number one, I advise that to you, each and every one of you, no matter what. Stop listening to CNN. Stop listening to MSNBC. Quit. Even Fox News. Stop. These organizations are in many ways merely mouthpieces for the Democratic Party. Well, Fox News is Republican. Fox News is established Republican. I hate to use the phrase, but they support the deep state. They support a professional politician. Donald Trump was refreshing in one sense that he said what he felt. He wasn't a career politician who basically stood up and lied to everyone, knowingly lying to everybody like Obama did. Well, Obama didn't lie. Yes, he did. He boldly said, this plan will not cost a single dime. Then he said, if you like your health care, you can keep your health care. You like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. All of those statements he knew were false when he was making them. And the American people sat back, and even though the majority of the American population opposed Obamacare, they still rammed it down our throat. See, Congress doesn't represent us. They only sucker us to get them elected. They all lie. Trump's lies were more lies to promote his ego. I had the biggest turnout for an inauguration ever. No, he didn't. But that's his ego. But I don't recall Trump ever lying to me about a policy he was proposing. May have got some of his facts wrong, but not boldly lying and saying this is going to help more people than anybody. Well, that's his ego. He did not flat out lie the way Biden already has been caught lying. Biden doesn't know the truth any more than any other politician. Biden said he'd pay $2,000. He used a loophole and got away with $1,400. Biden says he's not going to take your guns, but yet he's pushing for legislation that'll take guns. Well, as a Christian, you shouldn't want a gun. No, as a Christian, I should have the right to defend myself. God gave us the tools to do so. Alright. You need to be careful. You need to remember that the people that we pick to lead us can lead us to hell just as even easier than they can to heaven. And frankly, in the 20th century, that's where every one of them has been leading us. Inch by inch, they slowly take away our own choices. They eliminate our ability to make choices and force opinions on us. This has, well, hopefully, it's going to help you to at least start thinking. Look at the alternative media. Find out more information. And remember, everybody lies. Everybody pushes propaganda. Fact checkers are employed by the companies that, their idea of a fact check is, well, I don't think you're right. Check. Or they'll give you mostly false when what you've said is true. It's all based on their political viewpoint. They call opinions false. You got to read beyond. And when you read and when you hear a newscast, check it. What are they saying? If what they're saying did not happen, they lied to you. Go look and see somebody that talks about what actually happened. Learn to discern. And when you're looking at people that claim to be Christians, remember, if they can't sit back and say Christ came in the flesh, they're not a Christian. If they say they hate their brother, you can't hate your brother and love God. The Bible tells you. And if they're trying to change what the Bible actually says into something directly the opposite, if you remember, I discussed how the books of the Bible were chosen. And they were chosen based on their ability to all say the same thing. A book that sat back and said, go out and sleep with people of the same sex, would never have made it, because that was wrong. It was wrong then, it's wrong today. You've got to discern, because soon your choices are not going to just be on how much taxes you pay, but on whether or not you get to eat, whether or not you have any freedom left. And if you don't start planning in advance, it's going to bite you. I hope today's message gets you thinking at the least. If you liked this message, please hit the like button. Hit that share button. Share it with your friends, your neighbors, your enemies. Hit the subscribe button. And if you are interested in helping out, you may contribute through this platform. You can go to Patreon. If you look at our channel's description, a Patreon account is listed now. You can go to our website, which is www.waitinginlaodicea.weebly.com. There's other methods to donate towards us. And if you just want to donate some of your time, gladly use your time. Contact us through email. Let us know that you're interested in helping, and we'll be glad to put you to work. I am A.T. Martinez. I hope you've enjoyed today's show and today's broadcast of Waiting in Laodicea. You have a wonderful week, and may God bless each and every one of you.